Hello, everyone. I'm Max Sims, and welcome to the Guilford County Comprehensive Planning Meeting. This is a committee meeting. We have a lot of things to cover today, and we want to thank you for your participation. And I do mean your participation because we're looking for your participation and feedback on that as well. As you know, the Guilford County is doing their annual, not the annual plan, it's the 5-year plan, I believe.
Well, you can do it every 5 years. For us, it's been more like about 16 or you can do it every 10.
Well, I was sending us a subliminal message, you know.
Yeah. Usually it's anyway, 10 to 20.
But we greatly appreciate that. I would love to introduce everyone in the room. We'll start with Marvin over there, and then we'll go to our friends who are on the internet. Marvin?
Hi, I'm Marvin J. Price. I'm the Executive Vice President of Economic Development for the Greensboro Chamber of Commerce.
And let me say, we need to congratulate Marvin. He's recognized as Economic Development of the Year official. And let me tell you, he's done a fantastic job. I've had a chance to see just a little bit of his work, but we all appreciate what Marvin has done. Thank you for participating in this meeting with us, Marvin.
Absolutely. Thank you all for having me.
Yes, and I'm Guy Gullick. I'm on the Guilford County Planning Board.
I'm Jim Donnelly, also on the Guilford County Planning Board.
Jim, are you the chair?
I am.
Okay.
So we're the vice chair.
Okay,
so
the chair and the
brothers
vice
in crime.
We thank both of you there. Appreciate that.
Yeah, Alex Ashton. I work with UNC Greensboro and also volunteer with Piedmont Conservation Council.
Justin Snyder, Senior Planner for the Comprehensive Plan here in Guilford County, and I'm assisting Kay Graybeal, who's about to be introduced.
Kay Graybeal, and I'm assisting Justin Snyder. I'm Deputy Director, Guilford County Planning and Development.
Thank you. We'll start over there.
I'm Palmer McIntyre, a conservation planner with Piedmont Land Conservancy.
I'm Ralph Thomas, representing Greensboro Regional Realtors Association.
I'm George Stigg. I'm a farmer in the northeast corner of Guilford County and also chairman of the Soil and Water Conservation District here in Guilford County.
Great. I'm Max Sims, chair of this committee, but I'm not doing the work. We'll have Brenna who'll do the work and talk more about what we're doing. Maybe go to our guest.
Are we able to?
I saw him earlier.
I don't know if you minimize that.
Yeah, you have to minimize
behind it. They're hiding behind it.
Well,
We've got see X that or X.
Okay, you can't minimize it while it's sharing.
yeah, just if you exit out of those two windows there. Yeah, there you go.
There you go. I will start. You may start. I don't see your name.
I think Brenna can introduce Jessica because she is with the Design Workshop.
The young lady who has her hand to her face. Your name?
Hi, I'm Jessica Garrow. I'm a principal with Design Workshop, working with Brenna as the consultant team. I'm really excited to be with you all again. And I'll maybe suggest Crystal and Liana to go next since they're also part of our team.
Sure thing. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks, Jessica. I'm Crystal Joy. I'm Managing Director at the Lee Institute, and we're here in Charlotte. And we are part of the Design Workshop team. Happy to be here as Community Engagement Specialist.
Hi, I'm Leanna Montaglione, and I am Project Coordinator at the Lee Institute.
Thank you. The gentleman with glasses who has the same haircut that I have.
Oh, up top?
Yes.
Yeah, that's right. I'm Alex Rosser. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for the Piedmont Triad Airport Authority.
Thank you. The next gentleman I think is, I can't see the name. Is it Mark? Is that right?
It is Mark.
Mark?
You needed Mark?
I think you're still muted, maybe, or either something's wrong with your mic.
There we go.
Here we go.
That was a setting problem. I wasn't on Zoom on the last virtual meeting. So my name is Mark Kirshner. I'm Director of Planning with the Piedmont Authority for Regional Transportation.
Thank you, Mark. And I have one more for my internet.
Donna Bell, I think.
Donna?
Hey, I'm Donna Bell. I'm the planning director for Guilford County Schools.
Thank you. I think that completes all our introductions. Brenda, we'll turn it over to you to share with us where we're headed on this meeting.
Great, thank you so much, Leah. Really appreciate that. We covered what we just went through, so if you want to see our faces a little bit more, you can here. This is our full team. Not everybody is here today, but we do have Jessica on the line and Crystal and Liana. And we're excited for starting to shift into the second phase of this planning process. We do have listed, I know there's some folks who weren't able to make it today, and we're glad to have this recording for their use. So these are all of the members of the steering committee, and so I just want to thank you all again for offering your time and your guidance during this planning process. I just want to kind of a reminder, and also for maybe folks who weren't here at the first meeting, or it's been some time. A little bit of a refresher on the role of the steering committee, and certainly as we get into the second phase, there'll be a lot more interactiveness as we get into some more activities around land use discussions. But of course, attending most, if not all, of the scheduled meetings. So thank you for being able to take time out of your day. Provide insight and perspective on thoughts, ideas, opinions in the community related to the future of Guilford County. This is going to help to inform the planning process and also the project delivery. Participate in as many of the project's engagement activities as possible, and maybe even more importantly, push out those activities to your networks. We are here in the community, and that really helps us to push the survey out, push all of the activities out that are going to be forthcoming.
Hey, Brenna?
Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt. The folks online, we can't see your screen.
Oh,
so I don't know if you need to share through Zoom as well, or if you need us to share on our end, but we can't see that.
Thank you. Do you all see that okay now?
We got it. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. You'll all be providing input on the key themes of the plan and the theme-based chapters in the document as we get into drafting the document, and then reviewing that draft document before it goes to final adoption. And thank you, Max Sims, for volunteering to be chair of the steering committee and keeping us on track. We will be helping to conduct these meetings and also help to ensure that we're all hearing from each other, coming to consensus during meetings when we need to, and has offered also to speak on behalf of the steering committee at the planning board or board of commissioners at the end of the project to help support the adoption of the plan. So thank you very much for that. So I'm going to dive into a little bit of a review on the plan scope, and in each of these sections, there'll be opportunity for everybody to have discussions, and please stop us if you have any questions along the way as well. And Kay, for this section, if there's anything, or Justin, that you want to add too. So the county has put together this map, and I've shown you a lot of existing conditions maps in the first meeting that we had. But this one really starts to isolate where this plan has the most influence. So because this is a county-wide plan, it does primarily focus on the unincorporated portions of the county outside of the ETJ zones. And so what this map is doing is showing these sub areas or area plans within the unincorporated portions of the county. And that's going to really influence how we continue to plan this process, because we do want to get to that level of detail. And it's also going to influence how we go to the community in this next round of engagement. We'll come back to this map.
We'll come back to it exactly. If
you'd like to point a few things out now,
It's,
go ahead.
it's just an important map because it shows the areas where the plan is intended to have the most impact for the areas that don't have their own planning departments, their own planning processes. So those wind up being the colored ones are those areas are based on area plans, which we'll talk about later. And the grayed out area is the incorporated area. Some of those areas have their own planning processes or their own plans. And it's not that we wouldn't hear from those folks because they're part of the county too. But we do want to focus on these colored areas which are unincorporated and make sure we get input from those since the plan is mostly geared towards those areas and just interfacing and interacting with gray areas which are incorporated. Makes some sense.
Okay, can I ask you a couple of questions here?
Yeah.
If it gets us off track, just, I know that we haven't had an area plan for that area in the southeast part of the county. Is that intended to continue or is that something that we're gonna pick up?
We'll pick it up.
Okay.
Great. Yeah. I think we're gonna be able to cover it in this plan. Yeah.
Great.
With a more deeper dive into it.
Okay, excellent.
Any other questions on that while we're here? Awesome. So then we wanted to dive into a little bit, just a reminder of what we heard from you all and also if we've gotten anything wrong or missed something really important from our last meeting with you. But we did, the last time we worked together, those of you that were able to participate, and then we sent out a polling activity afterwards for those that were not able to participate. We had a few kind of big questions leading to the project. And so we asked, what makes this plan successful, and sort of a combined summary of that responses is up on the presentation here. Most importantly, it needs to be implementable. We don't want a plan that's just gonna sit on a shelf with specific and measurable goals and timeframes. We heard from you all that it needs to be user-friendly, easy to read and easy to update. A plan that reflects the vision for Guilford County, that highlights existing county assets and opportunities, inclusive in participation and engagement. We heard from you all that it needs to be relevant for the diverse geographies and population. It's a big county with a lot of different types of communities and areas. And a plan that's coordinated with Greensboro, High Point, incorporated towns and neighboring cities and counties. And we've had a couple of meetings with with High Point in particular, who's going through a similar planning process, and we'll continue to have coordination throughout the process. Partner organizations having a meaningful seat at the table and understand and support the goals of the comprehensive future land use plan update, and that it's forward thinking and adaptable future. We also heard from you about some of the trends that you all felt are important to address in this plan. So planning for affordable housing initiatives, a variety of housing options, loss of agricultural lands, natural resources, and open space. We spoke a lot about that. The demographic shifts as a growing county, balancing economic development and growth with those environmental and agricultural preservation goals, leveraging and responding to anticipated development associated specifically with the mega site anticipated, planning for future transportation needs. We heard from you all about considering multimodal infrastructure for improved public transportation, pedestrian and bicycle connectivity. And we also heard from you all about regional cooperation being important, very in particular, and water and sewer infrastructure. And we heard some similar answers when we talked about the issues and challenges. So I won't read through these, but I think we heard a lot of similar things about addressing all of those issues and some of the challenges that you all had identified in the early part of this process. And then some opportunities to innovate as well. And so this is a combined version of the responses that we heard from you all. Leveraging data and technology, considering affordable housing incentives that might not already be offered, encouraging multimodal transportation options, integrating graphics and future land use. A lot of these things kind of tie back to the other ideas, encouraging wildlife and green corridors, for improved habitat connectivity, considering innovative partnerships. And we've had some conversations around that already in relation to transportation and some other topics. And exploring incentives for historic preservation and natural area and open space preservation. That's what we heard. That's a condensed version of what we heard from you last time. Do you feel like we missed anything really critical from that, or is there anything that you would like to add to that from what we've heard from you so far? Seeing some nodding heads, seems good. Okay. All right, we'll get into the rest of it. So as you all, I think you've received a few updates that we have extended the community survey to receive more responses. So this schedule is a little bit updated from the last one that we shared with you all in a meeting. We are going to talk to you all today about that next round of engagement and look forward to discussing your thoughts on the best way to get out to the community, and we'll hear some ideas as well.
I do have a question in regards to the community input. Is there, because this isn't the first comprehensive plan that anyone has ever implemented across the country, what is that key success rate, or when people say that a plan was good and that they had a lot of input from the public, how many responses does that typically look like? Is it 100? Is it 200? Is it 1,000? Like, what's that key number that we're looking at versus what is the industry standard?
Yeah, I see Brenda shaking her head, but I do want to say that I feel like we're talking about it in a couple of different phases about the number of participants. For instance, in phase 1 was pretty much marked by our survey phase ending July 31st. And we did have a goal of getting anywhere from 600 to 1,000 responses on that survey. And that, I think, number was based on what a typical percentage is for a survey like this in other counties. And we're getting close to that 600 mark for completed surveys. We've got another week or so, a week and a half. But we have had over 1,000 people answer at least some of the questions of the survey, or attempt to finish it, or open it and look at it, answer a few questions. Maybe they didn't quite finish it. So you have at least had over 1,000 people to open it and at least look at it, and, you know, approaching that 600 mark that we had a goal to achieve. And then in phase 2, where we'll start the public workshop meetings where people can come in person or hybrid like this and participate in public input, maybe exercises and different kinds of public input activities. That I don't know if we have a benchmark number for that, but our goal is to spread the meetings around the county, which we'll get to that, to make sure that we kind of go to 2 areas within each area of the county to try to draw people in that way and get as much input as we can from the far reaches and corners of the county by going to them. So we'll be looking now for participation in the meetings versus participation in the survey.
I understand completely. Thank you for that insight.
Yeah, so usually we do kind of, it's not a statistical survey. That's a different and very expensive process. So I do want to be clear about that, but it is, we do try to pick a number that is a percentage of the population. And so that's where the 600 kind of minimum came from in terms of a target. And I don't know, Crystal or Jessica, if you had anything else that you wanted to add about number of participants for survey experience.
No, I think from our perspective, you know, you kind of hit it. That it really does depend on, and it depends on the community as well. It depends on what's been going on in that community. It depends on how engaged that community has been in the past, how spread apart people are, how energized people are in their community about what's been going on. So it has some of it's historical and how people are engaging and how we can get people to engage. So there's also, you know, the benchmark of are we looking at the numbers or the excitement that people are having around some of the engagement. So if we're able to create excitement around the process and get people engaged. And we'll see those numbers grow. And as she mentioned, as the phased process moves forward, you'll see that people might go, I don't know, may or may not participate in a survey, but I might show up if you show up where I am, or I might participate if you come to me. So there are different ways to engage and to kind of measure. But it's, again, it kind of depends on the community. But what I'll just echo what was said already in the room.
Thanks, Crystal. Okay, well, we won't linger too much on this schedule because we will come back to this, but just kind of wanted to give you all an update here, and we're looking to solidify those dates for this next round of workshops very shortly. Did also want to touch a little bit on what the county and our team combined have been pushing out to get the word out. So there is sort of a project website that's on the county website that has the centralized location with the project background, the FAQ. The survey is posted there in English and in Spanish. And then this is where we're posting dates for meeting announcements and materials. So that's kind of the hub of everything. And then the county has been pushing out emails through various listservs. They have been posting to social media and running social media ad campaigns, sent out a direct mailer, which was really helpful in targeting specifically unincorporated portions of the county and getting the word out that way so that folks could get something sent directly to their door and said, hey, you're in this area that's going to be affected by this plan or impacted by this plan. And then we also produced a couple of flyers that Kay and her staff have gone out to multiple pop-up events, farmers markets, other events that are happening to get to folks where they are, and have also helped to administer surveys where people are as well. And then there have also been TV and newspaper ads being run. So this is kind of the suite of outreach, and it's been very helpful to see what's been effective so that we can bring that forward into the next phases as well.
We'll say that we have like a weekly outreach plan in a chart form that shows what we've done each week. And we didn't quite get that completed out and sent out to you beforehand so you could look at it. But it's list all the types of events here, sort of what we did on a week and on a day-by-day basis to try to get input for about 16 weeks. And so perhaps we can send that to you as an attachment after this, but it kind of captures all those types of outreach efforts in a list.
Is that outreach pretty much only happening in the colored areas on the map?
Mostly. I mean, we're trying to target those areas, but we've also done some things near and around High Point area and Jamestown, and so also Sedalia, Pleasant Garden. So we've gone to the towns because they draw people in from the unincorporated areas as well to some of those events and meetings. So that's a good question. We are trying to get more input participation from areas like in the Northeast and Southeast where there's not a lot of events or things, incorporated areas going on where we can just piggyback onto them. But we've gone out to like Northeast Park out there, far east area. We would welcome any ideas that you all have for helping to reach Mr. Teague here. You live in the Northeast, and he wasn't, we had not recruited him by the time of the first meeting, but we're glad that he's joined us now, and hopefully he can help us with a network in the Northeast a bit more in those voluntary agricultural districts. That's a good question.
We also, last time we met with y'all, we did share with you some of the key takeaways from the focus group meetings that we had around these 6 topics, but we just wanted to include it as a refresher here. And I think one of the things too about what we heard, and those were more technical focused conversations with primarily technical experts, and some of you all participated, but we heard a lot of the same things that we heard from you all. So there's a lot of continuity. And you'll start to see also in our first workshop or public meeting, we're starting to hear some of the same themes around what people see as the assets, the challenges, and vision for the county. And then from the survey, the survey is still open, but we did just want to give you guys a snapshot of who we've heard from so far. And this is as of 2 days ago, so the number has probably already gone up a little bit more. But as of 2 days ago, we were at 559 completed responses, as Kay mentioned. So there are some folks who maybe abandoned or they didn't want to take the demographic questions or some other question that they wanted to skip. And so we don't do a full analysis of the survey until it's completely closed. Once we close it, then we determine the total numbers and divvy up the responses. And then that's also a way for us to do some cross tabulation and take a look at if there's differences between the unincorporated areas of the county and the incorporated areas of the county in terms of their responses.
When are you closing?
The survey is planned to close on July 31st. So we've got about a week and a half left of the survey.
We have a county commissioners meeting coming between now and then.
And not between now and then, but once the survey closes, we would like to give an update to the county commission about where we are with things and how the survey went.
I was thinking if there was a meeting.
Advertising.
Advertised it at the county commissioner, you would be amazed how many people.
Oh, well,
tune into.
to advertise the fact that a public workshop is coming up, the county commission meeting is a good time to do that. And we also had a pop-up table at the last county commission meeting to get survey participants by people. And we've had them at a couple of, at least 2, maybe 3 of the planning board meetings. Because we know those people are interested in government, or they may have something to say about it. Something they either like or don't like, depending on how things went at the meeting.
Now, I don't know if our county commissioners would be willing to do this, but like in a last ditch effort to get us across that finish line. Some of them have social media platforms like Facebook or Twitter or something like that. And if they just say, hey, fill out this survey.
At least one of them did, I'm aware of, at least one of them did that.
Yeah.
It's worth maybe we might check in with them again in this last week. Yeah, great idea. It'll help us out some. Because you can see on the left where it says community types, we're trying to also kind of track where the responses are coming from by community type. Like, is it a rural subdivision or a subdivision that's more on the fringes, a suburban subdivision more in the fringes of an incorporated area, whether it's rural farmland, whether people are living in a more traditional kind of historic area. So we're trying to track that as well. And that's what the graph is on the left under community types. That's helpful to know as well.
Is this like a thunderstorm where the red intense is the high level?
Yeah, I was just gonna explain that. Yeah, so the red, and I don't think this is shocking, and we see this in counties, right? If there's a higher population in a city, you're gonna get responses
more
centralized. But it's been cool to see this change over time, because I think in the beginning it was just a few specks in the other parts of the county, and through the efforts of the county staff and getting the word out, I think we've been able to get broader representation and hope to increase that. But I think the workshops are going to be the best way to get that feedback.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. As you can see on the western side, it's pretty heavily, where things are more densely populated and densely developed, you've got word of mouth and maybe more participants there than you do in the far reaches of the county on the east. And that's where we'd really like to try to focus to get more people pulled in to participate.
I think from Marvin's perspective, I think the more you have involved, the better responses you will have, people knowing about it. And you talked about something now every 16 years, and that's what developers use to expand and understand whether or not it reaches a comprehensive plan. So it's kind of a guideline. So I think we can't get everybody to participate surveys, but as many as we possibly can to know about and have an opportunity to do that gives us a better feel going in that we had a complete opportunity to do that. I think in addition to that, there are several of these communities that do have their own council meeting, and we hope we can utilize those councils to promote that as well and encourage them to do so. Because when their decisions are made economically, they come and ask how did that come about right there. At least they will have participated and understand, given them some directions on that.
Exactly right. And I'll give a shout out to Stokesdale. Justin has presented there, and we've presented in Sedalia. And then another planner has put the word out in Pleasant Garden. So yeah, we definitely want input from those areas as well.
Can we not do something at school starting? I mean, I know it passes the survey stage, but maybe information at open houses for schools.
I think we did investigate that. I'm not sure that we got a favorable response to that, just because they were trying to find how it correlated with, going back to school. And, of course, there's decisions to be made, although the schools do their own planning, of course. So
I never notice another tabled open house. Trust me, there's so many. We can just sneak in there and they would never even know.
We have a representative from the school board, Donna Bell's on, but we wondered if there's a way to reach, PTA meetings maybe. I don't know how relevant they find this to be, but I think input can be provided on certain aspects of schools. But I don't know, Donna, did you have any ideas on that?
I was thinking more of like some way to reach out to all of our schools, because I think there's an open house schedule in the fall, right before school starts, and so everybody has a set date. So it's all hands on deck and getting the parents and the kids acclimated to the school building and the focus on that first day of school, because the open houses really happen very closely to that first day. I was thinking I could put you in touch with folks in our district relations office. It might not be in-person contact, but if we have any way to give you directory level information for our families, it might be a way to try to make contact in that way. And I can talk to them about any other ways that there's any kind of information that can be posted at the schools. I'm just trying to figure out how you could get to a lot of people in a very short amount of time. And the open houses, of course, I mean, there are 125 sites and they're all happening in the few weeks right before school starts. So it might have been just a little bit too much to try to incorporate another type of informational kind of table. So let me reach out to our district relations folks, and then I can get in touch with UK and then see if we have anything that we can do to try to spread the word even further with our school communities. Does that sound like a plan?
Thank you so much, Donna. That sounds
Yeah, anything I can do, I'll see what I can figure out.
Yeah, even if not for the surveys, for the upcoming meetings.
Right.
Parent Academy is great at communicating out through phone calls.
Exactly.
Academy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mark, it looks like you had something you wanted to add if you want to jump in now.
Yeah, thank you. I think the distribution that you've received is pretty amazing in terms of around the county. There is such a thing as survey fatigue, and the city of High Point is going through a comprehensive planning process too, and they have a survey out. And then just a little perspective, we just completed a household travel survey for the entire Piedmont Triad, and that's an expensive proposition because invitations to take this survey were actually mailed out. So we mailed out some 60,000 invitations, and there was an incentive, financial incentive, to complete the survey. And we did meet our mark, but our mark out of that 65-some thousand was 8,000. And like I say, we met it, and we met it by a couple hundred. So I don't know that if I would be so concerned about the number of surveys, but again, the distribution and maybe looking at some of the demographics. Are you receiving, responses across the different racial categories, as well as, like say, from a geographic standpoint, age? So I would focus more in that area than just thinking about sheer numbers.
That's a really good point. And we have really tried to concentrate our efforts in getting in touch with underrepresented communities. The steering committee has helped. And Justin's done a lot of outreach with, getting Latino communities involved and African American, but as you can see here, we still have overwhelmingly white Caucasian response. But we're happy to see that we've got a variety of responses from a variety of ethnic groups. But any further ideas that anyone has for helping us get in touch with these communities would be great. 'Cause that is, you're right, Mark, the sort of our outreach to the underrepresented in our distribution is really as important or more important than the number.
See, I would wonder what our ethnic distribution is outside of the urbanized areas in the unincorporated areas to see how they would compare. Because right now our census data is for the overall county. So obviously these numbers don't reflect what the overall county is, including urbanized areas, because the African American population is a much higher percentage. Hispanic, we're actually not too far off, believe it or not. But in the unincorporated areas of the county, I would imagine the Caucasian population is much higher relative to what the other populations are, just from my typical experience in rural areas. So that would be an interesting thing to see how that compares distribution wise.
Yeah, we'll be able to assess all that, I think, when we close, but in the meantime, we want to make every effort we can to reach out to all groups.
We, again, the survey has not closed, but there are some kind of big trends, things that are popping up that are so far on the priority list of people that they're unlikely to change if another 100 people respond. And I think you'll see here that a lot of these similar topics and that people have selected as their top priorities are very similar to the topics that we all spoke to you all about. So that's also a good sign, is the quality of the information that we're getting, and is it in alignment? We'll be going through, of course, open responses, and all of that could shift some things, but we wanted to give you guys a sense of kind of what we're hearing so far from the community. By far, the furthest line over is cost of living and affordable housing. And that's probably doesn't come as a shock, I'm guessing. Yeah.
You shared it with the nonprofit consortium.
Big help.
So we're going to shift into kind of what's next, knowing that the survey is still out, and there's some data analysis to happen after that will further refine what we understand, but we're starting to see some trends and some patterns. And we're starting to plan and think about the next series of workshops. So we'll be diving into planning the workshops, and then this round is more around future land use and takes a little bit of a closer look at each area plan. We also are going to want to affirm the vision and the themes for the plan. So part of the next steps from this survey will be to draft a vision statement and the kind of high level guiding principles and themes of the plan that we'll then want to share with the community and get their feedback and say, this is what we've heard from you. Do you agree with this? And would like to workshop that with you all as well. And we'll get into that a little bit later. There is another touch point with the community where after this sort of next series of workshops, we'll be drafting the plan, and that will then go out to the community again. So I wanted to bring up this map again because the strategy for this next round of workshops is to have a series of 5 different meetings in different locations throughout the county. So it might be a little bit hard to see, but
I just not to interrupt, but does that, or maybe Jessica can tell me, does that laser have a laser pointer on it?
Yep.
I don't know if people online can see if you use that.
They
They cannot see it. Okay, it doesn't help.
You'd have to have
You'll have to describe it verbally.
What about your cursor?
yeah, I can use the cursor. I don't know if I can do both.
I know.
Cursor would be better because online can see the cursor.
You can also just talk them through it if you want to describe what area you're pointing to, the areas you're
Yeah,
pointing.
absolutely. So I know that Kay and Justin have been working on looking for locations, and a few that I think are a little bit more concrete, and maybe you all want to speak to those, are an area, a meeting location near Pleasant Garden and Alamance Creek area plan, and then one near Sedalia.
And those are two of the most important meeting spots, because we think that's one of the most important areas, because as Jim Donnelly pointed out, the Southeast doesn't have a plan yet. And also we've got the Toyota plant down there, and we've got city running some water sewer down to that. And so we feel like that's one of the areas that has one of the most, a lot of development pressures. So we definitely want to have some strategic locations there.
Okay, quick question on that. I know that there was a small area plan done for the Liberty Road, like Woody Mill Food Lion
Yes.
ish area.
Yeah.
I live a couple miles from there down the southeast. Is that still intended to be like its own carve out?
It will, what we've got shown here are the area plans, and the larger area plans. And then we do have a series of small area plans, and the one small area plan that we want to feature and work into this process is that Woody Road, because of the development pressures and the issues that will be included. We'll do our best to focus on and gather input as we're down in that southeast area for that area to help us update that plan as well.
So I have a ignorant question. While I did go to school for planning, I had a concentration in economic development. So maybe, just maybe, I should have paid attention in class. So right now, we're looking at those spots that are highlighted are in the unincorporated part of Guilford County. By being unincorporated though, there are annexation maps where the different cities and municipalities have the ability to annex that piece of property. And based upon my experience or just knowledge, once something is annexed into the city, they have to abide by those city laws and city plans. So hypothetically speaking, that southeast area that we're talking about right now, if tomorrow Greensboro said, we want you, come on over, our plan could essentially just.
Very likely what you'll see is if they do that, they're gonna do a corridor annexation, but you'll still have the fringe areas that are bordering that corridor that we've got to be very cognizant of when we do our planning.
421.
So we're gonna have to know how to step down those land uses outside those corridors where the major development is gonna be concentrated, so.
And I only say, and also last point, how is our plan going to tie into the 421 corridor study that's being done by the city of Greensboro currently?
We have provided design workshop with a whole series of every plan we could find that was available for Guilford County, and then some for Greensboro. The 421 corridor plan.
It's not done yet because they're in the process, but we do intend to, that's gonna be in concert with this process.
Doing an analysis of all those plans and make sure that you're trying to make sure they're coordinated and not.
Yeah, and the only reason why I bring that up is because I'm on that committee too. So it's like, if it's something that y'all want me to say, I would really like some talking points that I can make sure that I'm stressing in regards to the same thing. So just making sure we're all singing from the same hymn book.
Yeah, thank you. And mentioning that corridor kind of annexation pattern, you've got a little, you sort of got the beginnings of that going out 70. You see these satellite annexations in even some along 85-40, I think. So the little satellite annexations are moving along those corridors to the east, and but they haven't, those annexations haven't ventured south yet because it's such a long way to run water and sewer. And so far the city said, okay, we'll do it for Toyota, but we don't want any other commercial or economic development type projects tapping into that yet. So, but you've also got, Burlington.
I think that's the key word, yeah.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And I think we're gonna say the same thing, but my understanding is Burlington may consider running sewer along 62, going past Alamance towards Liberty that way. So that could open up that unplanned area to residential development as well.
And that would be in the city limits of Burlington, right?
I don't know if they'll require annexation. They do have extraterritorial like sewer agreements, because they provide to Gibsonville and some other places as well. So Forsyth does the same for Stokes, well, not sewer, but water for Stokesdale. And so that does happen from time to time. I haven't talked with Jamie to see what their plans are out there.
Any director for Burlington, yes.
Okay. If I could ask, I'm not trying to step on anybody's toes, but just when you mentioned the locations, the meeting locations specifically, what was your plan for the Sedalia area? Were you going as far as Rock Creek Dairy, or were you looking at a community outreach area?
Actually, we've looked at Charlotte Hawkins Brown campus.
Campus, okay. Because not too far from there, you got the golf course that is out there as well.
That's a possibility. The town hall has said that we could use that if we needed to. And they were also looking at, it's Tabernacle Methodist Church that's sort of right here down in the heart of the southeast that we think would be a good location. So.
Right, and when you get to those churches in the rural communities, those could be some key components to get for outreach. Just making that, let that be known now, because we've got a lot of members that would be interested in coming to find out what's going on in their community.
Yeah, the churches are a great vehicle for helping us get the word out. And they have actually, the whole network of churches, I think, has helped us to get the word out about the survey. There's an African-American network of churches, and then Justin, I think you put one together as
Yeah,
well.
I populated a list of any of the churches representing Asian American, African American, Jewish, Greek, any of the underserved populations, just to get it out there. It's been in some of their bulletins.
Up in the northeast area, we just don't have commercial development. We need to depend on churches and schools for.
Well, that's what I was curious. You were wanting more input from the northeast area, but you don't have a meeting in that area. So, you know, both sides is a long ways.
Here, because we're grouping two together, but up here far north on sort of the borderline between the Northern Lakes area plan and the Northeast plan, but this we haven't nailed down spots up there yet. So we're looking for input and any ideas for.
You had mentioned Northeast Park a while ago. That just seems like it'd be more in the middle of.
Can I offer a suggestion? We have an online process for community use of schools, and we have cafeterias and auditoriums and most of our sites, depending upon the capacity that you're looking for. So I'll put a link in the chat, but there's just a form to fill out location wise. So if you find that there's a location at one of the schools that might work out, there's a process for figuring out if the time works, you know, if school is in session at the time. But that might be something to use, because we have a lot of different locations that might work.
So, and in particular, in the southeast, you know, there's a number, like Southeast Middle down there is kind of right in that area. But
in contact with one of those, Southeast High School, is it?
It's right next to. I'm wondering what
considered that
timing was tough.
On the two down in the southeast there. What is the dividing line between the Alamance Creek area plan and the not covered area?
It's the Old Julian Road.
Old Julian Road?
Yes, between Alamance Creek and not covered, yeah, between the yellow and the blue area.
I guess what I'm wondering is, like, I don't know if the folks down there wouldn't necessarily think of that as a boundary. Could just like northeast is combined in a larger area, could that the Alamance Creek area plan and the not covered area just be one single area?
Something to consider, because the Alamance Creek plan exists, and the question is, do we want to expand that and just take that in as part of the Alamance Creek?
That would seem logical.
Instead of a separate plan, something to.
Yeah,
that works.
Yeah, like when I'm riding down Old Julian Road, I don't think, oh, it's very different on this side. The other side.
It's true. A lot of stuff in reality doesn't look like it does on the map. That's for sure.
And if you
Makes sense
combine
to
them,
us, but not anybody else.
yeah, if you were to combine them, you could very easily distinguish different development trends in one area versus another. So that's certainly a possibility.
Section 1, section 2, subsections, yeah. Okay. Suggestions.
I think the main thing here is that none of these are completely set in stone.
No.
So we would welcome your feedback on other areas that you think might capture more people, or might be somewhere that people are already gathering. That would be a good place to meet with them. So
Yeah, contact
Northeast Park would be better than in Sedalia, because that Sedalia is just completely out of that area for
yeah.
all the people.
And I think part of it, and we'll get into this conversation, is the format of the meeting too, right? So if we continue with an open house style meeting, which with the, similar to how we're doing here, where we would have a hybrid and in-person option, then we'd need some certain capabilities for the facility to have that. If that part
Northeast Park does have the
Okay.
ability, they have a good conference setup
Okay.
there with Wi-Fi, and so that could work.
Yeah.
So that may work.
We can
I
come
think you'd
back.
get more response from the community there than going, to the outskirts of that, to not feel like they're a part of that, that.
Is there a reason for only having 5? I mean, could there not be more?
Well, we're looking at time and resources mainly, but also because of the point made about the dividing lines being maybe sort of arbitrary. So it does make sense and make it easier to sort of combine some of the areas, because people won't necessarily confine themselves to giving input on their area plan. So we're combining 2 at a time, because they're just because the areas are related to each other. But there's a time and resource issue too, with what we're actually able to do with the staff we have, the amount of money we have, about how we can focus, how many different smaller areas can we focus in on. But I think that there's enough overlapping in the areas that we've chosen that we'll get a variety of input from those areas that we've coupled together. That will make sense, but that's a good question. Just
On the whole western side,
think
the county is lacking a meeting location,
Yeah.
and that's such a fast growing area.
That's why there's no meeting over there, because we expect it's gonna be fully annexed here by the time, we get down the road just a few years. Kernersville is gonna take over most of the heart of the triad. And then Airport Plan's got its own kind of planning area there. So there's just not much left. So that's our thought.
I would offer this, we're coming back and forth from some of our agenda items, we're covering some of them in the point right here. I think, and we looked at it, I would wonder, and this is from thinking from a staff side, that each commissioner would like to, each commissioner would like to have some program in their area. In each in their district, they would like to make sure that they're covered on that, and we may want to look at that as being one of our guidelines on that. I understand budgets, understand where you are, but I think if we left commission out there, someone's going to call and say, why do you not have it in mind? And
give them the right to refuse it. Like, we presented to them like, hey, we would love to do this in your district. Oh man, I'm going on vacation, I'm gonna pass. So then when it actually does happen, they're not coming back to you guys saying, well, I wanted it in my district.
Yeah, well, we need to make sure they've had that option at the point right there, because it then becomes political if you don't do that, as a matter of fact. And I've been in those meetings.
Okay. So our plan won't cover the heart of the triad or the airport plan, but I think if we're, down here in the southwest, we may be able to have something in the Jamestown area, and then like these pink and yellow heart of triad and airport area plan won't be covered by this plan. The rest is pretty much incorporated, as long as we have one sort of far over here to the southwest in the unincorporated areas we can. Hopefully we'll cover everybody, but we'll take a look at that. We'll do an overlay and see.
Again, I'm just thinking from a staff perspective rather than a volunteer perspective in that particular point. And to Marvin's thing, at least let them know where you're doing that and at least know where it is so that it doesn't become an issue at a commissioners meeting and that where you didn't come to my way.
Good point, yeah. We'll continue to solicit your input about where to have the meetings, especially in that northeast area, Georgia, but we'll look at Northeast Park.
So I'm going to hand it over to Crystal, who's going to talk a little bit more about kind of our engagement range of options. And
Hello, everybody. First off, let me just say I really appreciate the conversation that's happening in the room around, other ideas and just kind of the brainstorm around how else can we get to our people and the community members to make sure that they are incorporated or included in this process. Since one of your success measures is talking about or looking at how are we making sure that we're creating process that is inclusive and that people were getting diverse voices in the picture. So I appreciate all the things that you all are talking about. And I've gotten extra notes here that I've written so far. So I appreciate this first meeting that I'm able to attend. When we talked about engagement options, we wouldn't just, it could be preaching to the choir, but just wanted to highlight again some of the things that we're looking at or some of the things that have been done and that are opportunities as you consider when we go into this next phase of how, when we're talking about doing workshops and open houses, how else might we also be thinking about engaging community members and looking at the, how do we really get people's opinions? How do we really get to people? How do we want to engage? And that's also looking at, the type of information you want to reach. Who are you wanting to reach out to and how, and what do you want to know from those individuals that you're reaching out to? So the method that you're also considering using helps to figure out, which of these you want to use as we go along the process. So, and some of this we're already doing. So talked about single location, the website. That's when I talk about a push or a pull. That's usually where you do more push information. If we're looking at pushing information out, looking at using a website where you have a link and you've got opportunities for people to go back to those virtual meetings that were recorded and taking a look at those, but having a single location that people can go to. So that's an option for, an engagement range of, as we talk about the engagement range of options, that's one option. The focus groups we've talked about that have been had already. And again, there's still always opportunities for those, but that's more technical, looking at targeting individuals that you want to talk to or groups that you want to talk to for specific information. So that's more technical information that you're looking for in those types of things. We talk about surveys and polling. We are doing that right now and actually have extended the existing survey out until the 31st. And you all already talked about how do we get more people to participate in that? How do we get out to make sure that people have communication around those? So really looking again at looking at broad community feedback, answering those big questions around what does the community want to be? Who do you want to be moving forward? What does the identity want to need to be for the community? The ones that we're moving into that are more that have opportunity for more engagement, where you're really taking an opportunity to really talk to people and get people's perspective. Other opportunities are pop-up events and workshops and open houses. Pop-up events and how they sort of differ from the open houses and workshops are we meet people where they are. You all mentioned school meetings. Are there PTA meetings? Are there other types of events? Can you go to the farmers market? Where there are opportunities to really go to where there are groups of people and engage them in that way. And you can share information and gather information from people in that way. Again, showing up where they are in those particular groups. And again, targeting, say, who it is that you're missing from communications and engagement and going to those particular places. Those workshops and open houses, again, are the other piece, and then inviting community members to participate in meetings in a centralized location. Those are things that we're also looking at as opportunities in this next phase, where we're looking at, and again, appreciate you all tossing out ideas for what locations we might use that would have the capability and the capacity for us to have those conversations and those open conversations and dialogues with community members. But those are the differences that you bring people to you versus we going to them. So again, all of them are good and opportunities for us to engage. It's just a matter of selecting the one that fits best for the particular opportunity or for the information that we're wanting to go after. So just a quick reminder around those.
And Brenna, I don't know if we want to talk any further about or Crystal, the potential for media in a box, if anybody wants.
Oh, yes. Yes.
That's
Brenna, do you want me to start it?
Yeah, you could go ahead and talk about that, Crystal.
Yes, one of my favorite things, and I love that this group is already so engaged and active and having conversation, because I said one of my first questions is, are the folks willing to do some homework and giving assignments? Because that toolkit in a box, and whether it's the folks that are here and in the room or around the Hollywood squares, or if it's people that we can identify who are community leaders who we want to be more engaged in this process, who have the ear of people in the community and can get out to those folks, creating up some type of toolkit or the meeting in a box where we say, these are the questions that we need to have asked and we would like for people to participate in. And those individuals go out and facilitate those conversations and bring it back. So there's ownership in the community around having those conversations. They're already meeting with people that they might be familiar with. Or if it's a skill set building for opportunity for people who are wanting to do those types of things. But we give them that information and then tell them to go forth and have conversations and bring the information back. So there's then ownership for having additional champions in this process in the community. What else did I miss, Brenna?
I think that's good. Yeah.
Other questions or ideas?
Maybe that was coming up on the homework part of the agenda.
Okay, similar, yeah.
So hold on to that thought, because it'll come back up later.
I'm going to dive in here really quickly, and just to follow up on what Crystal said, I think as we're thinking about the format for this next step, what we wanted to do is share what we would anticipate to be some of the key activities or conversation topics that would be covered in this next set of community engagement meetings. So we're going to run through kind of 3 different exercises in county and area plan visioning exercise, what we're calling right sizing comprehensive plan themes. And that's just making sure that these things are really reflective of Guilford County and the vision the community has. And then a future land use framework and sort of mapping exercises. So if you want to go to the next slide, yeah. So kind of what is a visioning exercise? So this is really focused on solidifying that vision statement for the plan, that overarching idea of what we are trying to achieve and what we see as the future for Guilford County. And then secondarily, kind of understanding some of the nuances at the area plan level. So when we talk about wanting to go to different portions of the county, part of that is to really understand how is planning considerations, the goals, the vision may be different in the northwest portion of the county versus the southeast portion of the county, as an example. In terms of kind of where we are at, and I'm forecasting a little bit, as Brenna mentioned, we have started to see some kind of key themes emerging from the engagement to date. And one of the things that we'll be sharing with you is a homework exercise to start thinking through a vision statement and what are the key components of a vision statement for Guilford County. And we want your feedback on that so that we can then integrate that and then bring it to the community and really test it through interactive exercises. So just some examples here on the slide. These can be really interactive, using sticky notes, using markers, using a dot voting. So we really want to make it an interactive process, but trying to kind of dive into the overall vision. Crystal, anything you would add there before we move to that next section? No, okay. So second set of activity is about what we're calling right sizing the comprehensive plan themes. So these themes that are on the screen are what we have anticipated as the main chapters, if you will, within the comprehensive plan. So it is dealing everything from the natural environment to housing to transportation and mobility, and making sure we have an equitable distribution of services. So these will each, in all likelihood, have a goal statement around them. And that's where we want to make sure that we are not doing a one size fits all for the entire county. There may be different topics that need to be addressed in a different way, depending on what community we are in. And so we want to make sure that we're really getting that information through these workshops or pop-up events, so that that detail can be layered into the plan. Crystal, anything you would add there?
No, just agree again, talking about the making sure that we are tailoring it to the things that we are wanting to know from those particular community members. Again, figuring out what do we kind of reverse engineer those conversations.
And I'll maybe add that the idea is take what we've learned from the survey and then test some ideas. And that is a really great way for us to get feedback from a community members. So next activity would be a future land use kind of mapping activity. And this is related to place types, development patterns, and then kind of character based, potentially visual preference surveys. So the first part of this, if you go to the next slide, is what we call guiding principles mapping. And this is a way to take some of the specific goals and ideas that we've heard through engagement and start to articulate that into a map. So as an example, we might hear from the entire county or a particular area that preservation of farmland is important. And then we can say that's where this is located within the county. Or we need to see a different type of housing unit in order to address growing community needs. And so we might identify on this guiding principles map where we're trying to have more diversity of housing, or where we might be trying to preserve some existing housing. And so it's really marrying, if you will, the idea of those goals, the vision, and starting to put that into a map. And then from there, that leads us ultimately to the future land use map. Future land use map is really exactly what the name implies. It's identifying the specific land uses, whether that's residential, commercial, industrial, agricultural, environmental preservation, like open space areas, identifying that as a land use category on a map. And that can then help the planning staff and the county as they move forward in decision making to evaluate development applications, think about their future policies about where to direct growth and things like that. So we take those goals and then we start to map them at a more fine-grained level onto this future land use map. And activities related to the future land use map might be like a chip game. It could be, it tends to be more tactile, I guess. It's not so much thinking about the goal statements. It's really about where should we start to put the building blocks that make a strong community from that kind of land use perspective. And then ultimately, this is an example of what that might look like for the community.
So Jessica, so it's really using, is geographical, it's using geography, it's using the context of place and people's familiarity with that and what they vision for it and what they see as maybe strengths and shortcomings that would guide their answers as to what is the response is tailored to a specific area of the community and their experience there in a geographical way. Is the way they would respond in a geographical way.
I would just add, I think, there's a data element of this as well, right? So we've been gathering mapping data and existing conditions. And so this is overlaying that community voice on top of that. So there might be some ideal locations based on what the data is telling us. And this adds that layer of nuance and community preference, but to tailor it more to the specific.
Some people have asked, are you just gonna let the public write the plan? Maybe they're not professional planners, they're just gonna have special interest groups, you know, or people that are just thinking about themselves maybe, or there's that concern about bias. But as Brenna said, if we look at what's actually on the ground existing and what the actual trends are and what the facts are, what that tells us, plus what people are telling us and what their vision is, you've got to marry the two. Yeah, so that we're not just using just the facts and we're not just using just people's opinions. Form there.
So we've talked about these, I think, a little bit, but we wanted to pause here and just talk about any other thoughts that you all have about what ideas or suggestions you have for meeting venue locations, or what ideas or suggestions you might have for the community open houses based on what we've shared today, or questions that you have. And if anybody on Zoom as well is wants to come off mute and has thoughts, do so.
Perhaps you can share with us a few questions you would ask the group when you're in the group. I mean, after you give them an overview, what things would you ask them about? I know from this committee, we talked about a number of things which you have listed. But when you're in that meeting and now everybody presumably will know more of the people in the room because they're neighbors or someone in their section. So what questions will you ask them to get them moving and get them started? And what specific questions were you looking to compile?
You might have had a slide covered some of that earlier.
Yeah,
to a certain degree, but
Jessica, is there a slide you want me to go back to, or I can speak to that?
If you want to maybe go back to, I think it's slide 28. It looks like it has some of the future land use categories. So, yeah, they're just kind of describing the overall activities. So for kind of that vision exercise, what we might say is, here are 2 vision statements. On a scale of 1 to 10, how do what do you think about that? Do you agree? Does it capture your vision? 10, yes, 0, no, it doesn't. We might pull out some of the specific ingredients that are going into that vision statement and really try to dive deeply. So as an example, I've been working in a community where climate change and resiliency is top of mind for them. And so we have really kind of dove deeply into that of, what do you mean by climate change and resiliency? Is that related to wildfire mitigation? Is that related to flood hazard planning? Is it related to avalanche? It's in a mountain community. And that helps us then articulate what is a goal statement, right? Because we've now defined what does climate change and resiliency mean to them. So it can be diving deeply there. I don't know, Crystal, is there anything that you would add on kind of how you might approach some of those questions?
No, I think that's an alignment with what you all were saying. You were saying, Jessica, there might be a question just to get energy up around what is it that you love about your community already, and just to get people kind of excited about, what is it that's really, really that they love. When we're talking about that identity piece, and I keep laughing because bias. I'm here in Charlotte, and I was just talking yesterday about the fact that Charlotte and our identity, and what is Charlotte's identity, but figuring out each one of these, there might be in totality a holistic perspective that everybody's looking for, but where for those particular communities, where is it they find important that they really want to hold on to, where they feel differentiates them and they might be excited about, and that can kind of go into that visioning exercise, or that piece around what is it that we find important and who we are and who we want to continue to be, as you all talk about what development and things need to be and what the character needs to be moving forward. So that's just maybe one thing to get people potentially excited. And I see Mark's hands up.
Oh, go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, let me just throw out one other sort of maybe cutting edge idea. And it's been used a couple times in our region, but And that is the idea of having a webinar or a virtual meeting. And I thought about it when you mentioned the meeting in a box. So you could either pre-record something or, like I say, just advertise a webinar during the lunch hour or even in the early evening, and have people join in that way. Obviously, your direct engagement is different and maybe not what you like for it to be. But you know, this would help my friend Ralph get his realtors together and get some input from them by, you know, simply having a webinar and engaging people virtually that way. That's an easy way maybe to get the, you know, when it's not about numbers, but to get the numbers up, or here's the number of people that were engaged or involved or heard about this plan.
That idea. But I was just going to say, as you see here and on the slide where we mentioned topics and activities, they're using words like activities, exercise for these quote meetings. We're actually not calling them input meetings. We're calling them open houses or workshops. So we do want it to be interactive. We did have one initial sort of kickoff where we were presenting information to it was a public meeting where we're presenting information to give them the overview of what a comp plan is. But in these following meetings, we do want it to be more of an open house with exercises, activities, things that engage and provide opportunities for interaction. Yeah.
One other idea for location is potential polling places. And presumably if you hadn't already considered that, you know, Board of Elections would have that information, and, you know, they've already identified these places and probably have some partnerships, and for, you know, most of those places have, you know, at least a room as large as this. I know this is an early voting station here. Yeah, so that might work out all right. Hopefully they have some technology.
Yeah, they ought to know because they're trying to find the community centers. Yeah.
I suggested Justin, I don't know if they've got the technological capability with the Moose Lodge down in the southeast. Might be a spot.
I'm wondering too, while this is a comprehensive planning thing, when the meetings I've attended, it also come gripes. You know, all of a sudden something is not an issue, but since you're here and I get to speak about that, we need to know how to manage that particular point on there. And for instance, you know, up in Northeast, you know, they're going to change some zoning for us around here, housing and not housing. How do we address that? And I would think in some areas that you got worried about expansion in some areas, and in some areas you might have they're more concerned about housing, either more housing and so forth on that. And then some areas might say, you know, when will water and sewer be extended to this area so that my property can be more valuable, or that so you got those issues coming up there. And while we're talking about the comprehensive plan, while it may be not directly there, it certainly will have some concepts on that. And since you're not the committee on representing the county commission at that particular point, but trying to get the plan on there, but you're going to hear some of that.
Yes.
I think it's how do we manage that and understand how do you make sure that they're on point and keep doing that, just sharing that with you.
So something,
For that.
yeah, something that I have seen happen in different meetings that I've appreciated is setting the standard, like expectations on the front end. Hey, you guys, just want to let you know, we don't control water or sewer at the county. This is a county comprehensive plan. If you have questions around water and sewer, City of Greensboro, City of Burlington, somewhere else, but it's not this meeting. So let's kick things off. I mean, it's that idea of making sure like people know, like, I mean, a lot of people had to take, you know, civics 101, but maybe they just need a refresher.
Right. The same would go for school systems.
Yep.
Because you can get into some very serious debates over the school systems. When are we going to get ours updated? And just they can become totally railing off track conversations that have no no bearing on what the scope of what we're trying to do is. So you definitely have to keep it focused and contained. Great recommendation.
Those are great points that you three brought up, because it would make things a lot easier if people understand what we can and can't accomplish with the plan to begin with. And so just lay it out up front.
And you'll have those who know more than you.
Oh,
Yes.
And they will tell you this is what we're doing on that. So as we conduct those, understanding as we look for those things to get us off real sometime, and they will take you down that rabbit hole way down there if you and that's not where you are. And I think perhaps being not of this community may help us a little bit.
We're a little bit of a buffer.
Yeah. Exactly. But I think we got to be in touch on how to address that. So there will be county officials in that room as well. Yes. So some of those things. Again, I think if we look closer to the communities where we're going, some of those questions that we might want to ask may not be important to that particular neighborhood, but others might be there at that particular point. Because we're talking about land use.
Yeah.
And land use takes in a lot of considerations. And somebody, does this mean that, are we going to be incorporated? Are we going to be annexed? And you have all those issues too to be talked about. What does that mean from that plan? So. Did I see your hand?
No.
I thought I saw you.
Thank you for that.
And I will just piggyback off of that again. That customization per community is really, really super important, so that one, they know that some of the communities may have been asked questions before. And I think Mark or someone mentioned that there was, survey fatigue and people have been asked questions before. So making sure that we're sharing information that we've heard and asking, validating, did we get that right? In some, instances, to make sure that we heard what we were, they wanted or they intended for us to hear, but to customize those questions and those communications and receiving that feedback based on each one of those communities, so that they feel again like they've been truly heard and that their voices in the process in the past have been brought forward.
Well, we have a couple of closing kind of thoughts before we kick it back over to you, Mac, as well. And we also have, we're going to talk a little bit about the homework that we'll be following up with. But before we kind of lose track of that, we wanted to get a sense of, this meeting format and what your preference is going forward to, has the hybrid, and love to hear from the folks on Zoom as well, if this hybrid has worked out well for you, if you can hear everybody in the room well, feel engaged. And if that's something that we want to continue to do forward. And I think Kay and just you might have some questions around that too, location wise as well.
We talked a little bit about, we in planning wondered if the committee members would want to try to go to different areas of the county for these steering committee meetings. Just to give you the excuse and the reason to drive out to areas you wouldn't normally see. Short of that, if not for the steering committee meetings, of course, you have opportunities to come to these public workshops if you want to see a particular area of the county. But we like to, accommodate as many people as possible. And so I don't know if you have a preference for meeting in person versus virtual, or if this, like Brenda said, is this hybrid work for you? And also, would you rather just keep it sort of in a more central location, or one that's, like for instance, this one, that's a standard location, or move it around? Do you have any feelings on that? Yes.
Just one opinion here, but I think logistically for you all, having a consistent location where the technology and so forth, if we do hybrid meetings, is going to be a lot easier. Because you take it out to a place you're not familiar with and you don't get the trial run. Inevitably, there's going to be a technology glitch with the hybrid piece.
We have to do some trial runs. We have to do trial runs. Yeah.
So I would say, just from a staffing and resources standpoint, it's probably maybe easier to do it from here and then encourage folks to go out to the individual meetings when we have them around the county for that experience.
You talking about the planning committee?
We're talking about this steering committee.
Yeah,
That keep it in one place, but then if you want to drive out to some of the other meetings that we have to see those areas, you can do so.
I think that option would be on that. And again, I think once we know where they are, have a clear understanding where those meetings are, I think some might want to be there. Or if we know everybody can't go, then, you know, if you were in that area, then we would expect maybe you show up there because you already know that. And I let me reiterate, if you're in a district, be sure that your district representative has an invitation and let them be able to kind of open up your meeting and talk about that, because they're the constituents that they want to look like. And I would say that if I didn't see my district person there, I want to know where they are on that particular, and they can express the importance of that as well. It's not political, but it's politics.
And they'll be ultimately the ones voting on adopting the plan.
Yeah, exactly. But I agree, you know, our meetings, we keep them central. This is a nice place. So we changed it. We were talking about, we're in another location when we were planning this, weren't we?
Our first.
Three of us when we were doing that planning.
Yeah, we were talking about the McAdoo room over in the Truist building. They have all that construction around there.
I'm glad you changed it because I didn't read my email.
I know, and apologies for the mix up on that.
Yeah, I think I sent front of the wrong address.
This is Mark. If you were to meet someone else with the steering committee, we're located out here near the airport. So Alex could maybe point some things out with all the activity going on at the airport. You can get here by public transportation. We have a meeting room that holds about 50, and we have the technology. So if you were to go to another part of the county, I would offer our space here.
Thank you. I've been out there, and Mark, you said it's about 50 people?
Yeah.
Somebody said 50, okay, something to keep in mind.
And if there's anything we can do to help, our boardroom has 24 spots around the board table, but there are another 14 chairs along the back wall. And we do have the technology to host a Zoom meeting while the meeting in the boardroom's going on as well.
Thank you. Mac, I guess for as far as our, I don't know if we want to consider that further and looking at possible locations, or just or decide if we want to have it at one location and keep these other locations you mentioned in mind if we have public input meetings there, if we were to do that.
I'm open to hearing. I've got one vote for here. I got one vote for if you want to move around, I got to vote for there. But what's everybody thinking? This is a central location.
I finally found the building, so I prefer just to keep it here.
And I agree.
Now that I know where I'm going.
I think the technology is sort of key if we're gonna have these hybrid meetings, and you guys seem to have it down pat here.
Well, we're getting it down pat. And also, I've been told by our parking staff that if we move the meetings to 3, they'll open up the parking deck downstairs for more spaces to park in the deck. So, but as it stands now, we were trying to split you up among 3 different places: the Green Street, the Independence, and underneath. But at 3, they pretty much open up the deck. They can open up at least a lot more places. So I don't know if that time works better for people. 3 o'clock.
Yeah, if we go from 3 to 4:30, then it's an easy shot home, right?
The date for our next meeting? Okay. Before we back into that, I just wanted to acknowledge that Crystal has to head off for another meeting. Since we are at time, so I just wanted to be mindful of the time, but I can keep going. I just wanted to, if anybody did need to step off because it is 3:30, just wanted to let you know that. But for the next time frame, the anticipated schedule was between the second series of workshops and the third series. So after we would have the community, this round of community meetings, and then we would be coming back to you all with kind of the next draft of things to review. But, you know, there's some flexibility in that. That would be anticipated the next one. So once we get that date, those dates set for the community workshops, then we can kind of track from there.
Wait,
when date would be.
in September.
Yeah, most likely the next steering committee would be sometime in October, most likely, if we were to follow that.
What's the goal for a presentation to the commissioners?
Spring.
Spring of next year.
Okay, so-
We'll hope to piggyback on to one of their workshops in the spring.
And adoption would be subsequent to that.
Yeah.
Got a little time there.
And so there would anticipate being one more meeting between that, basically to review the draft plan before we take it to the commissioner.
It would seem to me that the feedback from the regional meetings would be great to have for our discussion at the next meeting.
Exactly, yeah, yeah. So that would be we don't have a set date yet, but we will definitely reach out as soon as we have some firm options for that. Jessica, did you want to walk through the visioning exercise that we are going to be following up with?
Yeah, maybe just really quickly. We're going to be following up with you on with some homework that we are working through and finalizing with staff. We have, as we mentioned, pulled some initial findings from the survey, and based off of that and conversations with you, we have a draft vision statement, and that we are hoping that you'll provide some feedback on that. What is missing, what needs to be changed, what should be excluded, and we'll pull all of your comments together, and from there we'll draft an updated statement that we'll share with the community in those upcoming workshops. We'll have an open-ended exercise related to these comprehensive plan themes and asking you to identify some of the key pieces for each of these themes that you would want to make sure are articulated within the plan. And then we'll have a mapping exercise that we think is going to focus on what areas or land uses, building types, community character do you want to preserve, enhance, or transform? And so starting to think about, what do you want the future of the county to look like? Some of those things need to be preserved, right? Farmland in some areas. Others might need to be enhanced. So maybe it's a housing area that is good and it's working, but there are a few things that could make it even better in terms of connectivity or something like that. And then areas that are going to transform. So that might be the mega site, for instance. What are some things that we really want to see different? So look for that in your inbox, and we'll have some instructions that come along with that as well.
Thanks, Jessica.
For the survey. Push it at every chance we can get. So I think has everybody gotten the emails and the flyers? And I'm sure that you all have already pushed out to your networks, and so we really appreciate it.
If you haven't had a chance to take the survey, you can hold your phone up right now and get it.
That one more time. That's everything that we have from our end. What else do you want to close out with?
I'm a proponent of getting out on time.
Okay.
We're just a few minutes late, but
Thank you all.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
And thank you for Dewey's.
You'll be back, right?
Walking, where are my Deweys?
Old courthouse.
Grandpa want to recognize that class. I mean,
I know.
Dewey's that's a staple in